The New York Rangers have made a surprising trade right at the buzzer of this year's trade deadline, acquiring a player from the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to break that down, as well as Chris Drury. He spoke out on the Rangers trade deadline and the plans for the future of the Rangers, not only this season, but next season. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the New York Rangers, from practice updates to post-game reactions, all that fun stuff, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. But the New York Rangers made a trade right at the buzzer, a buzzer beater for the Rangers on the trade deadline, and they traded Erik Brannstrom, who they just acquired in the JT Miller trade a month ago or so. Acquired with JT Miller from the Vancouver Canucks for Nicolas Aube-Kubel from the Buffalo Sabres. Now, this is a bit of a minor league deal, although I think we could see Aube-Kubel play for the Rangers this season if there are any injuries or anything that's going on. But I would imagine that some of the younger guys like Othman, Brett Berard do stay around. But it's a very interesting trade for the New York Rangers. I think with some of the moves they made on the back end, Erik Brannstrom probably wasn't going to see a lot of time with the main club, with the big club. So why not move off of him for a guy who does have some experience and played with Rochester last year? He has some playoff experience as well. So pretty interesting move for the New York Rangers. But best of luck to Erik Brannstrom. He played 6 games with the Hartford Wolfpack. He had 4 points in those 6 games. He had 1 goal, 2 assists. The 1 goal that he did score was pretty spectacular. Go check it out on Twitter. I posted it in a video. I had it that I broke it down one time in a video, I think a month ago when he first came to Hartford. Pretty nice goal. But anyway, Nicolas Aube-Kubel is another forward for the New York Rangers organization. He has 8 points, 4 goals, and 4 assists in 12 games with Rochester. He also spent time with Buffalo, recording 2 points in 19 games played. So there is a world that he is a depth forward for the New York Rangers, right? Heading into the future, if there are some injuries, if the Rangers make the playoffs, stuff like that. But for the most part, I think he's probably going to stick with Hartford and be a bit of a mentor, per se, to some of the younger guys down there. It's not like he's an old veteran or anything like that, but he has some experience in the NHL. So it's an interesting move in that way. And this is from Peter Baugh. Aube-Kubel won the Cup with Colorado in 2022. He then moved on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he spent some time with the Washington Capitals organization as well. Brannstrom has now been traded 3 times since the start of training camp, so that's pretty tough for Erik Brannstrom as well. Best of luck to him. He does have some significant upside still, I do believe, but a bit of a logjam for the Rangers at the defense position, especially as some of the prospects continue to develop, or at least we hope they develop in this organization. But he's a Cup champion, Aube-Kubel. He brings that Cup champion pedigree. Just a nice guy to have around to, in the organization for the young guys. Like I said, it's not like he's the oldest player, but he's won a Stanley Cup, and you can't really teach that experience. So Peter Baugh also says, I believe this is the Rangers' final move of the day. At the time I'm uploading and recording this, the trade deadline has well past at this point. So obviously the last move, the Rangers are done, and that should do it for the deadline. So that was it. I think it was a pretty successful deadline. They didn't go out. They weren't big spenders or big buyers. They still have a ton of cap space that they can weaponize this offseason as well. And heading into next season, that they can go out and get some big fish in the offseason if they would like. So pretty good moves from Chris Drury. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but I think that he addressed some needs. And I like the Carson Soucy trade as well. I'm interested to see what he's going to look like with Adam Fox if they decide to do that, or maybe they're pairing him with K'Andre Miller. We will see what they decide to do with that, but I do like the move. And when you look at Nicolas Aube-Kubel's J-Fresh chart, he's a pretty good defensive player. I think that, he's a bottom 6 fourth liner, projected as a fourth liner. He doesn't make that much against the cap. He's a speedy, physical, defensive fourth line winger. That again, the Rangers need more defense. They have high flying offense. We know that, very one-dimensional play from some players. They could add some of this to the bottom of the lineup, like I mentioned, with some injuries. If they go into the playoffs, I wonder if they call up a guy like Nicolas Aube-Kubel. So it's a pretty good depth pickup, and he's pretty good defensively. 97th percentile there in defense, according to this model from J-Fresh. And Chris Drury spoke out on the philosophy of this year's trade deadline. But before we get to that, I do want to get into Nicolas Aube-Kubel's stats. We'll touch on that in a second. So far this season, 19 games played with the Sabres in the NHL. He has 2 points and he has a -4. He was playing an average of almost 10 minutes a night, so not too much there from Nicolas Aube-Kubel at the NHL level, but again, he's not a goal scorer or anything like that. He's going to add some defensive reliability to the bottom of your lineup, obviously. So to get back to what Chris Drury was saying on his philosophy this deadline, in terms of what the moves were, what the game plan was, he said, I was just really trying to thread the needle, trying to make sure we got some assets back for the UFAs for the future. Love that. That was a no-brainer. I think that was a great move, getting assets in return from, not only Riley Smith, but also, Jimmy Vesey, Ryan Lindgren. That was the move. And while trying to show the group I still believe in them, which I do, and I think that's true. I think that, he's going to call up some of the younger guys now, like we've already seen the last couple games, and he's going to say, you know what, go on a run here, try and make the playoffs, and he's going to put some trust in them. I wonder if the same trust is, if the sentiment is going to be shared from Peter Laviolette as well. I do wonder about that, but we will see. But that is kind of the plan from Chris Drury. And the plan for Nicolas Aube-Kubel will be to report to Hartford as well. That's what Vince was told. Could factor in as a depth option for the New York Rangers down the stretch, but he's off the NHL roster for now. So he's off the NHL roster. His cap doesn't really fully count against it. They're saving a lot of money. What are they going to do with all that cap space? Well, Chris Drury spoke on that as well, and he spoke out this afternoon. He said, we looked at a lot of different things. Some of those opportunities came up. Obviously, the trades we made sense. Some of the other stuff that we looked at didn't make sense. We're always just trying to make the best decisions we can with the information we have. This is what we ended up doing. So I do wonder, reading between the lines there, I do wonder if, JJ Peterka was something that really was on the table and they were trying to get him, but couldn't make the trade work because they did have a ton of salary cap space to work with. They could have re-signed him if they wanted to. So this is something that they can definitely weaponize in the offseason now. And I think this is a pretty good move in terms of flexibility from Chris Drury, because now this offseason, you can go ahead and say, hey, JJ Peterka, here's an offer sheet, right? We'll sign you. Here's an offer sheet, right? We got the cap space to do it. So you can definitely weaponize this cap space that they held on to at the end of this season. They could have done it at this year's trade deadline, retaining salary and stuff like that too. But I think at the same time, Chris Drury wanted to make sure that this team was ready to go for the playoffs, to try and push towards the playoffs. And the last thing we'll mention here is Erik Brannstrom. Pretty good offensive upside, but now he is with the Buffalo Sabres. And we were kind of seeing that with the Hartford Wolfpack, but again, bit of a logjam. The Rangers have different needs on their defensive corps as well, so I think it just wasn't a fit with the New York Rangers for him, especially with the big club. Maybe in Hartford, but I think this is a decent trade where you get Aube-Kubel back in return, and you can try and do something with him. Maybe in the playoffs, he's an underrated fourth-line defensive player. He brings a lot to the table defensively. So it's going to be interesting to see what the plan is for him. But let me know what you think about the Rangers trade deadline. The last move was Nicolas Aube-Kubel. Let me know what you think about those moves. The fact that they have so much salary cap saved, pretty interesting to me. I think they're definitely going to try and weaponize that cap space in the offseason. So it's going to be a fun offseason for the Rangers. But before that, got to make the playoffs. Let's see what they can do on this playoff push. A big game tomorrow against the Ottawa Senators, and some big games coming up against the Columbus Blue Jackets this month as well. But let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.